everybody. You're watching the Polaha Chautauqua live with Kristoffer Polaha, and I'm your host, Kristoffer Polaha. And Follywood joined us live. Hello, everybody. Hello, Sarah. Life can be scary and sometimes hard. Seems like you got a winning hand until you're dealt the wrong card. It ain't fair, but you're not alone. Down and out, or high and dry, in the darkest valley or the coldest night, you're fine, and you're not alone. With a song bubbling in your heart, with a story to give you a brand new start. You don't have to travel this big bad world all on your own, no, 'cause it's better when we do it together. Up and upside down, feels like there's no one else around. That ain't right, 'cause you're not alone. When it all goes south and life gets tough, when you've been knocked down and those weeds are rough, you just fight, come on, 'cause you're not alone. With a song bubbling in your soul, where a story can make you feel whole. Tackle this big bad world all on your own, 'cause it's better when we do it together. It's better when we do it together. It's better when we do it together. There we go, kids. That is the theme song that my boy Caleb and I wrote together. And I got a good friend of mine, Mr. Tim Griffin, who's going to join me today. And he's probably thinking right now, like, wait, there's a song at the top of this thing? But yeah, that's what we do here at the Polaha Chautauqua. I had a cool Sunday. I just got to be on the Today Show Australia. So I time traveled. I was in my living room, and it's Monday morning there. And I just went and got to talk about Wonder Woman and the book Moments Like This and Jurassic World, and working with Meghan Markle, which was kind of fun. So if you live in Australia, maybe you saw that. Guys, hi. Happy Sunday, everybody. How are you doing? How's everybody doing today? Let's go ahead and get started. We are going to talk about leadership today. And without it getting political, and it's funny because I'm bringing a politician onto the show today. It's not a conversation about politics and leadership, because those are two very different things, I think, sometimes. But I think who we vote into those roles of leadership matters immensely. And last year and this year, it's just been this huge sort of conversation around my house personally. And here on the Polaha Chautauqua, we've been talking about kingdom living and what that means, and what it means to be somebody who's living every day to experience the full expression of the human experience, and to live a life that's full of kindness, that's full of patience, that's full of peacemaking, that's full of goodness, self-control, that's full of joy, and ultimately that's full of love. And how does that translate into leadership? Well, let's start breaking it down. Webster defines leadership as the office or position of a leader, capacity to lead, the act or an instance of leading. Leadership molds individuals into a team. And then I was like, well, that's a lot of words about to lead. So what does lead mean? To guide on a way, especially by going in advance. Okay, to direct on a course or in a direction. To serve as a channel for, to go through, to lead, to direct the operations, activity, or performance of, as in to lead an orchestra. To have charge of, to lead a campaign. To suggest to a witness the answer desired by asking a leading question. To go at the head of, to be the first among, to have the margin over, to bring some conclusion or condition, to begin to play with, So the lead trumps, the lead violinist. To aim in front of, to pass a ball or a puck. You get the idea. There are a lot of definitions for the lead, like the lead in a school play. So what does it mean to be a leader? What does it mean to be a leader in today's world specifically? Where everything is scrutinized, where everything, where what we do and say on social media is a track record of the things that come out of our mouth, the things that come out of our fingers. So, of course, I always take you to the Bible because I think that we don't get enough of Scripture in our, mainstream media, and I love doing that for you guys. So, in 1 Timothy 4:12, it says, "Let no one despise you for your youth, but set the believers an example in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, in purity." So these are starting to talk about characteristics of a leader. "Therefore, an overseer or a leader must be above reproach, the husband of one wife, sober-minded, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach." So there's characteristics of a leader. And then here's a Proverbs 22:29 says, "Do you see a man skillful in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before obscure men." So there's something interesting, that a man who is skillful in his work, someone who is excellent at what they do, will stand before kings and not before obscure men, which I love about, that gives all of us this chance for leadership within our own fields, because we can become excellent at the things that we do, and whether that's being a mother or a mailman, my mailman. That guy and I, Quentin, he and I are buddies. Like, that dude does his job above and beyond. He's excellent at what he does. So you don't have to be the president of the United States to be a leader. Remember your leaders, those who spoke to you in the Word of God, consider the outcome of their way of life and imitate their faith. So if it's a good outcome, if their life is good, well, chances are they're doing okay. That's Hebrews 13:7. And then finally, the last little bit of the Bible I want to talk to you guys about today is Mark 10:42-45. So it says, "And Jesus called them to him and said to them, 'You know that those who are considered rulers of the Gentiles, they lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. But it shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant. And whoever would be first among you must be slave of all, or last of all. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many.'" So then all of a sudden you start asking from the Christ narrative perspective. It's funny, somebody today on the page about the preview said, "Oh, I love leadership, but when it comes to talking about human leaders, I'm going to zip my lips." So when you are a leader and you believe in the Christ narrative, that then calls you to a different standard. I was always, growing up, fancied myself to be a leader in the classroom. I wanted to lead roles in the school plays. Like, I always thought I was 6'4". I'm 6'4". I'm a big, tall guy. I stand out. I can see above a crowd. I always thought, well, if there's a fire, I'm the guy who can see the exit. I'll be the dude who's a leader. I can call out and I can do this thing. And I used to do this thing, and I've got a bunch of stories about my high school backpacking and camping experiences. So you're probably going to hear a few, but here's one specifically. When I was young, sophomore, even a junior, I didn't do much of it freshman year, but sophomore and junior, I would go out hiking, and we would take these 80-pound backpacks, and we would hike in about 12 miles. We'd set up camp, and we'd spend the night, and then we'd hike back out. And I always saw that it was my job to be the first guy in line. Like, I thought that the leader meant being the number one dude in line, because I figured if there was a mountain lion or a crazy man like hiding in the woods, like, I would be the first to confront that danger. And I was kind of, blazing this trail. And then I remember I became a co-leader my senior year, which put me in charge of 15 sophomores. And I was hiking one day, and all of a sudden it dawned on me that a leader, like a really good leader, doesn't stand in front of everybody without a view on people. He stands in the back so that he can see the whole line in front of him. And sort of all of a sudden I found myself being the last guy in line as the leader, because that way I could make sure that the slowest member of our troop, of our little camping group, was safe and was able to keep up. Often that person needed the most conversation, needed the most guidance. There was a real opportunity to be a leader when I put myself last. And so, humans are fallible. And today I was watching Church Online, and our pastor Sean was talking about how many Christians, leaders in the Christian church, have done things that have disgraced the church and that have sort of been a dark mark against what the message of, and he had this amazing thing which blew my mind, that Christianity is not a religion, that it's a way of life, which opened my mind to the fact that you could be Jewish and still appreciate the Christian narrative, and Muslim and still appreciate the Christian, and be an atheist and still be like, you know what, there's a Christian narrative, and there's all these values that are coming out of that. I don't have to. So that to me was this really, which we'll explore. I think we'll kind of dig into that later. But he was talking about specifically about these church leaders who disgraced the church because they were fallible and because they didn't have self-control, because they did things that got them in big, big trouble. And that got me thinking about human leadership. And it got me thinking today about specifically like, well, we have to have leaders. We need people who are in charge. We need managers at work. We need a lead actor and a lead actress. We need a director. We need government. We need a president. You're about to meet the lieutenant governor of Arkansas. We need him in his position at work. We need people. And it got me thinking about a football team, because today's a big football day. Tom Brady, great leader. Took his team when he was on the Patriots, he was on the Buccaneers. This dude is unquestionable. Like, he's a great leader. So what are those qualities that define him? Is he a perfect person? Absolutely not. Of course not. Nobody is. But then what does it take? So if I'm putting a football team together, I want strong guys. I want fast guys. I want coordinated guys. I want a guy who can throw the football. So I'm looking for specific qualities when I'm building a football team, because I want the best of those qualities in the best of those people. And I think we want that for our leadership. So what are the qualities that make an amazing leader? Okay? So I'm going to talk about a guy who's got some incredible qualities. I went and looked at his website today. He'll be running for governor of Arkansas. And so if you live in that state and you have a chance to vote for Tim Griffin, I implore you to do it, because it doesn't matter what party line you fall down. I think we should start looking at the people who are running and look at the quality of that human being. You can test the quality by what comes out of their mouth, the things they talk about, the things they boast on, what they're proud about. I'm going to bring Tim on as I talk about him, which is probably going to make him embarrass me. But he's married to Elizabeth. They have 3 beautiful babies, two little girls and a boy. So first and foremost, he's a husband and a daddy. There he is, man. If I go off the mark and you hear me say something about you that's not true, you can tell me to stop. But I'm telling people that you're first and foremost a dad. I'm going to raise my camera up here so we're both seeing. You're also the 20th and current lieutenant governor of Arkansas. You're running for the job of governor, and that election's in 2 years. Am I correct? 2022.
Yeah, 2 years.
Okay. You were U.S. State Attorney for the Eastern District of Arkansas, appointed to the position under President George W. Bush. From 2011 to 2015, you served as the 24th representative from Arkansas's 2nd Congressional District for the 112th and 113th Congress, where you were a member of the House Committee on Ways and Means, which is a pretty awesome committee to be on. You're a lawyer, and you've served as an officer in the JAGS Court for over 24 years. You hold the rank of Colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve. You served in Iraq. Thank you, sir, for being there. And you were commander at Fort Bragg. You went to Oxford, which is how I know you, because you went with my brother-in-law, Scotty Morris.
Many years ago.
Yeah, many years ago. And then you got your master's from the U.S. Army War College. Dude, that's a huge resume. And so talk to me, what I'm curious about today, Tim. The reason why I wanted to bring you on is because you seem to me like the Tom Brady of leadership. And I love that you've made a political career out of your life, because we need people like you in governance. And I'm somebody who's and I feel like our world should change. I feel like people should be able to talk about politics. And I feel like everybody should be able to have a healthy discourse, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on. And I don't think our country is really going to get back on track until we can start doing that. And I know you not as a politician, but as a person and as a friend. And so I was talking about leadership, and Julianne was like, you should ask Tim to come on. And I was like, you're right, babe. 100%, he's the guy that I should talk to, because when I see you post on Instagram, you go hunting with your son, he's your best buddy. I see, and I've had conversations. You brought us to the house, man. You brought us to Capitol Hill,
Yep.
Which must have broke your heart on January.
I was, the whole thing was heartbreaking. And in fact, I thought about that today when you came up and we toured together some of those places. That's exactly where all that violence and stuff went on. Yeah. I was just thinking, so you got married in what year? So I'm trying to figure out.
2003.
Okay, so I've known you almost 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just
Yeah.
goes so fast.
How did that
So,
go?
yeah, I tell you, so I've got 3 kids. Talk about leading. That in and of itself is a leadership challenge, right? You got to get buy-in. You got to have trust, all those things that you need in leadership. Generally, you need them with your kids. So I've got a 10-year-old boy that you mentioned, John. I've got a 3-year-old, just turned 3-year-old girl, not grandkid, but my kid, believe it or not. I'm not as old as my hair makes me look. At least I have some. I was just watching Terry Bradshaw, and I'm not there yet. But and then I have a 13-year-old girl who's wonderful, but of course thinks that she is 30. But yeah, so my wife is wonderful, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And in any event, I appreciate you having me on. You know, a lot of the leadership principles that I try to follow, that I aspire to, they are not specific to politics. They relate to just about any part of life. As you mentioned, I've been in the military for 25 years. I'm still in now as a colonel, and all of the stuff that I can talk about on the political side, I can also apply those and talk about them in the military context.
Sure.
I can talk about them outside a formal organization, like running an office or being in the Army. So thanks for having me on. The first thing that popped into my mind when you started talking about the Jesus model for leadership is just servant leadership. I saw that someone posted that up, and I've thought a lot about over the years, you know, what's the difference between leadership and servant leadership. And so I'm happy to get into all that, but I'll let you ask the questions, and I'm happy to talk about whatever.
Sure. Well, let's get started. So, okay, so I have these questions written out, and I said we've seen some very interesting styles of leadership, obviously, through our presidents, and we can go all the way back from like when we were, you know, aware of presidents. Like my dad was aware of Kennedy, and was just so electrified by how inspiring and sort of charismatic that whole Camelot. So you had Kennedy, you had Nixon, you had Carter, who was kind of the sweater. You know, he said, wear a sweater instead of turning up the heat to save energy. You had Reagan, who was very charismatic and who did a lot of stuff. And then you had the first George. Then you had Bill and his, you know, Clinton and his style of presidency. Then you had George W. and his style. Obviously, you have Obama. Then we have Trump. Now we have Biden. So we have a ton of different leaders, right? And they each kind of set a tone for what leadership looks like. And I guess what I want to ask you, if you were speaking to your son or teenagers or your teenage daughter, the young people today, so what does it mean in your mind to be a leader?
Yeah.
You can apply that to politics, military, or just home life. What does it mean for you when someone says, we need a leader? What does that mean?
Yeah. So, and I heard you go through the definitions before, so I'll just emphasize a couple things you mentioned there. There is the position of leader, right? Positional leadership. And then there is the practice of leadership. And you want those two to go together. The position of leader, but they don't always. And you don't have to have a position of leadership to be a practicer of leadership, right? So the position of leadership is just the nomenclature that we use to describe either an elected position, an appointed position, a hired position, whatever. So if you were to take a governor, to use the political, or if you were to take a general in the Army, you would say that's a leader. Not even knowing what they do, you would say that's a leader, because the position is a position of leadership, right? And but then you would look at what they actually do to see how well they fill that position of leadership. And that's the experience part, the practical part, right? And that's really what we're talking about here,
right?
Because that's the substance. That's not just a label. you'll hear some people say in politics, that guy's not a leader, even though he's got a high position, right?
Right.
What they mean is he got elected to that position, he got appointed to that position, but he ain't getting it done.
Right.
Okay, that's what they're basically that's
Yeah,
what they're basically saying.
Yeah.
So for me personally, and this applies to the military, to politics, to my family, to if I volunteer at my church to lead something or whatever, if I'm trying to organize people to pick up paper on my street, maybe, whatever, I think these principles apply, and these all relate to servant leadership.
Okay. So so leadership.
So first of all, you gotta have trust. Trust is a fundamental part of leading. Part of leading is getting people to do what you need to be done, because you can't do it all, right? You may be leading 100 people, you may be leading 5,000 people, but at some level, you need people to join you in the enterprise. And if you're looking at, you take a quarterback like Tom Brady, if everybody runs whatever play they want to run and not what the quarterback's calling, you have a problem, right? So you've got to have trust. And there are a lot of different things that go into trust. And I'm going to mention several things here that I always like to emphasize. And you really can't separate them because they relate to each other, okay? So one of the things that is key that relates to trust, but is also separate, is you've got to communicate equality as humans. Yes, you're in a position of leadership, but you're not any better. The ground at the foot of the cross is level.
Yeah.
Okay. So I may be elected to a position, but like Paul, I'm in a competition to be chief of sinners, right? I mean, Paul says he was chief of sinners. You know, we may have him beat, some of us. We are all equal.
Yep.
In God's eyes. So that's you've got to communicate equality. So when you're leading a bunch of people, you don't want to send a signal that I'm better and that's why you're helping me.
Right.
Wrong. That's wrong. What you want to communicate is we're all equal as humans, but I, for whatever reason, either have been elected or appointed, and this is my mission, and I need your help, or I can't accomplish as a leader what I want to accomplish, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to communicate equality. When the game was over tonight, the coach of the Patriots, the Buccaneers, was talking, and they asked him about Tom Brady, and he said what Tom Brady did is he came in here and he gave us the confidence that we could win. Okay. And that goes to my second point. You have to communicate to your team that success is your goal, that excellence is your goal, and that it is achievable. Okay.
That's huge, man. Success and excellence. I'm writing these down, dude. You're teaching me about my life. I want to learn. So you're communicating success and excellence, your goals, and you're letting people know that it's possible.
Yeah. So if everybody thinks the mission that you're leading them on is unachievable, you've got a problem from the get-go.
Right.
And when I talked about overlapping, that's an example, right? They've got to trust you when you say we're going to take that hill, to use a combat analogy. Yeah. If they don't believe they can take the hill, their heart's not going to be in it. If they don't think that you're going to go up the hill with them and stick with them and that you love them, okay, and they don't trust you, you got a problem. So next one here. So first of all, communicate equality. And then secondly, communicate success and excellence, and it's attainable. Third, you've got to communicate, period. When people that you're leading don't know what's going on, they will fill that in.
Yeah.
They may fill it in with rumor. They may fill it in with truth. They may come up with conspiracies. You got to keep them in the loop. Most people, they just want to be in the loop because we are human. We're not robots you can turn on and off.
Right.
We have expectations.
Right.
We have fears. We have concerns. We have families. We want to know, hey, am I going to get paid? Am I not going to get paid? What's my house here? Sometimes success means survival, literal survival, right? If you're in the Army. So you've got to communicate. That's another leadership quality. You've got to let them know that you're interested not just in accomplishing the mission you've been given, but you're interested in them. You're interested in the well-being of each and every person. And that goes to love them in Christ, love them as human beings because we're all human beings, and demonstrate, not just say the words, but demonstrate it. For example, you demonstrate that you want them to progress in their training. You want them to progress in their education. You want them to have the best opportunities. One of the temptations that leaders have is when they find people who are excellent. That's hard to do, right? In any business,
yeah,
it's hard to find the best workers, right? And folks that you can work with. And when you find them, there's a temptation to want to keep them and say, oh, I don't know how I could work. I don't know how I could get this done. I don't know how I could do this or that if I didn't have an excellent person like you. So the temptation is to say, well, I really don't want them to get stolen by another firm or by another company or whatever. I really don't want them to take that 3 months off for that additional training, because what if they don't come back? What if they get new levels? Right. What if they get new levels of ability, certification, degrees, whatever, and they don't want to work for me, right? So there's this tendency on a lot of leaders that when you find good people, don't let them get away from you. And I understand that. And I'm all for putting them in, giving them higher and higher levels of responsibility, rewarding them and all that. But you got to make sure that you are investing in them and making it clear to them that you love them. And while you need them to be for you and your mission, you are also always looking out what's best for them. So example is you hear from a colleague of a better position for them that will take them from you. That's the type of situation where you've got to say, hey, look, you're awesome. I don't want to lose you. But I would be remiss, and it would not be fair to you if I didn't tell you about this higher paying, better opportunity that you need to be looking at for your future. Okay. Yeah. And talking about the overlapping, what does that do? That's communication. That builds trust.
Right.
It demonstrates that you love them in not just words, in a real unselfish action. Right. So that's important. I'll bet you a couple more things and I'll shut up. You know, when you ask me, I could just, I told you,
I want you to go until you run dry. I'm learning, man.
Yeah. So let me mention a couple more things. And these all apply to movies. I don't know a lot about them, except I watch them, a lot of them. and of course the ones with you in it. But so here's one for you. Surround yourself with the best people. People that are smarter than you are. People that are more talented than you are. People that have something to offer. This is hard for leaders because a lot of leaders, we all have egos, and I pray to the Lord to keep me humble as possible. And I know it's a great feat for the Lord to deal with all of us. But a lot of leaders get so full of themselves that they want everyone around them to tell them what they want to hear.
Right.
That's called confirmation bias, right? You just want to hear confirmed what you already believe.
Right.
You want to be challenged with critical
surrounding
thinking.
yourself with yes people. Right?
Yeah, and this happens a lot in the political sphere. People watch this channel because it's going to tell them what they want to hear, and they watch this channel because these opinion people on this news channel will tell them what they want to hear. What you need to do is listen to people that won't tell you what you want to hear. If it's wrong, you can critically think through it and discard it. If it's right, you might learn something.
That's
so
right.
it's very common for leaders to want to hear what they already believe. They want to hear how great they are. That's just human ego, right? The danger with that is that you will miss out on a lot of different views that you need to hear because you have suppressed them and you have pushed them down, and everybody in the room knows because of the culture, another key word, that you've built. They know, hey, I can't say that. He'll get mad. She'll get mad, etc. So in my experience, I try to hire the best people that I can. Number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, I tell them, I want you to argue with me. I want you to challenge me. Do not call me Lieutenant Governor. If you have to in public, for whatever reason, okay, fine, whatever. But I don't want to hear that. I want to hear, Tim, you're just flat wrong on this. And then I want to get in a good argument with you. I want to go back and forth, knowing that at the end of the critical thinking exercise, where no opinion is off limits, we will come to the best decision as a consequence.
Which goes back to having trust in the person that you're arguing
with.
with.
They all overlap.
Communication and love, right? Because you love that
You've
person.
You've got to be fearless.
Yep.
They've got to be fearless and not worry about getting punished for challenging authority. And you've got to be fearless because you're going to be told that your idea is dumb.
Right. Right.
And I may have a complete blind spot because I just hadn't thought about it. And somebody just says, hey, we're civil, we're respectful, but we are vigorous in our arguments. I mean, look, I tell people all the time, do you think that the founding fathers in Independence Hall in Philadelphia, when they're hammering out the Constitution, you think they were all sweet and perfectly polite? It's summer. They're wearing those 18th century garbs. There's no air conditioning. They're wearing wigs. They're tired. They're aggravated. Look.
Yeah, they were short. I'm sure they were hungry. They were in
some big time arguments. Look, in this country, I don't want to get too political, but this applies to everything. We settle our differences with the vigorous exchange of ideas.
Right.
We don't settle it any other way.
Right.
That's what separates us from countries that we call clown shows, and we don't want to be clown show, right? We want to vigorously discuss and disagree about ideas. And that's so I encourage that in my office. I encourage that even, in the military. Military is a little different because you got a different culture you're dealing with. You're dealing with rank, and so people are taught to respect rank, and they absolutely should. It's critical to military order and discipline. But you also have to make it clear to those soldiers that you're leading. And I command a unit at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Some of them are officers. Some of them are enlisted. They've got to all know that, yeah, we're going to follow the military rules, but it's not because I think I'm better. It's not because I think I'm worse. It's because we just have different roles to play.
Yeah.
But we're all in this together, right?
It's interesting. I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second because it's interesting. When I'm on a set, my leader, when I'm an actor for hire, and it doesn't matter if I'm number 1 on the call sheet or number 21 on the call sheet, the director is that main person. And you can sniff out whether or not that person is a good director or a bad director, whether they're good at their job or bad at the job, whether they're going to be a good leader or bad leader. And if they're a bad leader, you start watching people fill that vacuum, like you said. So it's interesting. I was hearing you say, it's like, it's important to respect if you're not the leader and you're underneath it, it's important to respect that position of leadership. But you can also smell it out when you're underneath someone who's not a good leader and you're like, okay, this is going to be a tough road.
Yeah. And one thing that I just thought of, you want to make sure that a leader's not expected to know everything, but they are expected to not think they know everything. And so you don't want to send a signal to people that that you got it all under control. Here's the deal. I don't mind people who just straight up say, look, I don't know all the answers. That's why I need the team, right? The worst people are the ones that don't know all the answers, and I certainly don't, but they don't know that they don't. Right? They are so confident in their mistakes and errors, and everybody can see it usually except them, right?
Yeah.
And that's why if you start with we're all equal, we're all in this together, we're playing different roles, but we're not better than each other. And by the way, I want you to challenge me. It helps diffuse all of that. So I believe everything that I've stated, although not all specifically listed in Scripture. I think it's all consistent with the idea of servant leadership and leading and loving at the same time, and caring for the people you lead. And a couple of books I want to just emphasize. So this is a book, Leaders Eat Last, by Simon Sinek. And, you were talking about where leaders are. When you're going up a hill and there's danger, you want to lead from the front. But leaders are implored to also, through being at the back, to send signals to the rest of the troops in other contexts. Not when you're going into danger. You don't want to say, well, I'm going to hide way back here and you all go take it.
You guys go get all that.
That's different. You're going to be right there with them. But for example, when officers, there's a saying, officers eat last, right? Which is a big part of this this story. There's a whole on the back of this book talks about officers eat last.
Who wrote that book again?
Simon Sinek. He also wrote the book Get to the Why.
How do you spell his last name real quick?
Sinek.
Simon Sinek. Okay, leaders eat last.
Yeah, but like if you're in a DFAC, a dining facility in the Army, you let all your troops go first,
right,
and let the officers eat last. You are communicating through action that you love them and you want them to go before you because that's how you feel about them, right?
Cool.
You send all those signals in the DFAC and elsewhere. When you need them, you're going to have the trust. You're going to have the love. You're going to have the communication. One thing I want to point out to you on Simon Sinek, because this goes to leadership and it goes to the fleeting nature of positional leadership. Couple of things, and this goes to humility. So I want to mention a couple of things on this. This is part of this, and we all struggle with humility. It's something as humans, right? But I used to say when I was a member of Congress, I'd be back, and I think I may have said this to y'all, but when I was back, there's the speaker's lobby, which is actually where I believe one of those people got shot. in the recent storming of the Capitol. But the speaker's lobby was behind the House floor, and there's a bunch of different pictures, portraits, paintings of speakers of the House over the years.
I remember this room. I remember the woman who worked there.
Yeah, and so you look up. So this is where all the portraits are on the backside. And I used to look up and say, you know, these weren't just members of Congress. These were the speakers of the House. And when you get away from the last 5 or so, you don't recognize any of them. And I used to tell people, it just shows you these people were third in line to the presidency after the vice president.
Right.
They led the whole Congress, and you never heard of them. You have no idea who they are. It just shows you how fleeting and unimportant it is in the broad scheme of things. While you're here, do a good job, but it's fleeting. But one more thing, Simon Sinek, go on YouTube and look for his styrofoam cup talk. It's about 3 or 4 minutes, and he talks about the fleeting nature of position. It's about a general who went to speak when he was a general, and they gave him a porcelain mug, and they gave him a ride and all this. And the next year, when he was no longer a general, he showed up. He had to get a taxi. He arrived. He poured his own coffee. It was a styrofoam cup. Just shows you the fleeting nature of leadership positions.
Yeah.
So this is another book, Leading Change. Sometimes leading is pretty perfunctory. You're just sort of stepping in a role and doing what the last person did and leading it. And all these things apply to that because you want to do a good job. And then the next person comes. But a lot of times leaders are really entrusted to make huge changes and to really upset the status quo. That's when it's most hard. And that's what many refer to as transformation. And that's what this book is about. This is by Harvard professor John Cotter. And it talks about how you get people all on the same page. So it's not a top down, I'm the leader, you do this. That's wrong. Right.
It's a
collaborative sharing of the mission, sharing of the passion, sharing of the understanding, so that you have a culture that is consistent with change. If you have a culture that's fighting your change, you're probably going to fail.
Yeah. You mentioned the word culture a few times. Speaking of culture, I'm about to lose my battery for some reason. I'm going to run and get a charger. I'm coming back. There's people that'll talk to you. Can you see the comments on the bottom?
I can. Yeah, I've been sort of.
Okay,
watching. Yeah,
guys, talk to Tim for 2. I'm so sorry to do this. Talk to Tim for 2 seconds. I'll be right back with a charger. I don't want to drop.
I think I saw some friends on here. My 2 friends that I have, I think they're on here. I see some Tom Cotter. Let's see. They're going by so fast. Somebody just asked about what are your thoughts having friends at work or keep it professional. Look, I love the people I work with, and there's certainly a balance. I mean, you obviously have to. You don't want to erode or take away from. I think I see my daughter now. You don't want to erode your role, take away from your role. There's someone I went to high school with. How many people do we have on here right now?
Dude, we're doing pretty good, man. We got 113.
Oh, good.
16
good,
watching live, which is nice. Which is really awesome. I know that Katie, Scott's wife, was watching. So
I saw that. Yeah.
All right, I'm so sorry. I'm like doing this janky little mid-invert. This is what you get when you're trying to host your own Instagram show and you're an actor.
No worries.
And you probably should just stay on a set and mind your own business. But so question for you. I got a few more questions that I want to ask you before I let you go today. And one of them, because all of this information, dude, is so valuable. And I'm trying to put a movie together right now. And I can tell that based on the conversations I have with people, this idea of culture, this idea of letting people know that what I'm doing is gonna be possible. All of this stuff. It matters as an actor or producer. It matters when I'm on set. The tone that I set. Like if I'm the lead actor and I come to set and I'm just a jerk, everybody starts to cower and feel like, there's like the crazy stepdad who's about to beat you, and everyone just kind of doesn't want to be there. But when I'm there and I'm loving on people and I'm listening to people and like all the things you said, trust, communication, and love, when those things are present, and I have to put in self-control for me, like sometimes that just means, like sometimes it might be fun to shoot my mouth about something or somebody.
Yeah.
And I just like I have to learn to control my tongue,
Let me tell you
Humility.
what, the tongue's the biggest challenge for all of us. And the beautiful thing is, and I tell my kids this, we're not alone. If you had to read if you had to sort of pick out one of the biggest troublemakers in the Bible, it would be the tongue.
It's the human tongue.
And it's widely discussed. You can, you can just search the word tongue and you can find a lot of these. In fact, I've talked to my kids about that. I've told them the one thing that can cause more damage is the tongue. And that applies to me first and foremost. I want to mention a couple of biblical things if I can real quickly.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Look, we all should pray without ceasing, never stop praying. There's always the temptation to pray for what you want, not what God wants. And so I make a point. I don't always get it right. I want to keep saying that because that is so important to just, if you sprinkle equality with others throughout your conversation, it'll help minimize the risk of someone taking something you say wrong.
And you're not just talking about you're talking about social equality. You're talking about
I'm just talking I'm just talking about as a leader, not thinking you're better.
Right.
No one's better or worse than anybody else before the Lord. And you just, that's really important for a leader to continually communicate, because you are going to be telling people what to do often.
Right.
As a leader. You're going to be asking them to do something. You're going to be making decisions on their behalf. And I think it's all, look, I get a lot of this from my dad. My dad's a minister. And when people call him Reverend or doctor, because he's got his doctorate, he'll say, I'm just a janitor. I'm just a janitor. And the beauty is he demonstrates it. If trash needs to be taken out, my dad getting to go, where can I find somebody to take the trash? I take the trash out.
Right.
I take it out.
Right.
Because it's there and needs to be taken out.
Right.
That's why I take it out. Right. So anyway, I think that so I pray for the Lord's will in my life, and I don't always get it right, but I stay far away from praying for a specific path.
Right.
I just say, whatever you want me to do, open those doors, close other doors. And that is critical. The other thing I would say, James 1:5, ask for wisdom and God will give it generously. That's Tim Griffin's Southern version. But that's the general point, is you want wisdom, you need wisdom for any decision, whether to date somebody, whether to get your degree, whether to whatever, ask. James 1:5.
That's exactly right. So you wouldn't be opposed to, if God opened the door for running for president in the next.
I might be opposed to a lot of things that the Lord might want me to do, and I might misunderstand the Lord. if he said that. So I'd have to pray a little more, but
Well, I'm going to let you go in a minute because we're running at the full hour, and I know there's a football game on, and you want to get back to it. My kids are out watching it, but I have two
I'm going to go
questions
for
left.
a run, man. I'm going to go for a run. You got me fired
Right.
up. I just had a gallon of coffee.
Oh,
Community
good.
coffee, pecan praline, community coffee.
There you go. Two questions for you. All right. Two questions for you. Well, no, really this last one. You've had, I'm sure, in your life, you've had to take some stands as a leader that were probably pretty unpopular.
Yep.
How then did you deal with the fallout? Like when you make a decision that is not popular, and as a leader, you're like, guys, this is the right thing to do, and this is how we're moving the ship forward in this direction, and
Yep.
everybody's coming at you. What did you, and you said something earlier today. This is what I was going to say. It's not in my notes. That's why I glitched for a minute. But you said earlier today, you're like, man, I'm so tired. I don't know how I'm going to keep going, but I'm just going to keep going. So in the face of exhaustion, in the face of being a human and just being like, this is heavy load to carry. Like being a servant and a leader, which is really like you're always making sure that the group is okay. It's exhausting. So where do you get your fire?
Look, first of all, you can't make everybody happy.
Right.
And so you've got to also know that people who are unhappy are going to be louder than those who are.
Okay.
That's just, the 100 people that are mad at you are going to post more on Facebook than the 200 that aren't.
That's interesting.
Because anger drives action more than satisfaction.
Yeah.
The satisfied people go watch football. And the angry people, even though they're half of the number, they go in line and say things and whatever. So, I don't. So here, I don't. I'm going to do what I think is right, and that's how a republic functions. Right? We're not a direct democracy. A direct democracy would be you take a vote of everybody, see what they want to do, and that's how you roll. That's not our system. The founding fathers wanted people to get on with their lives every day and elect people they could trust to make decisions. So when I hire someone to come over, or if I were to go see a heart surgeon, I wouldn't say, well, why are you doing that kind of incision? You ought to do this kind. That's why I went to the heart surgeon. He studies that all the time.
Right.
And so when I was in Congress, for example, I would be studying an issue for weeks. And I would leave a meeting and someone might say, well, this happened in that meeting. They saw it on the internet. And I would say, well, I was actually in that meeting and that's not what happened. Well, yeah, I read it on the internet. And I'm like, well, okay, look, you elected me to go to these meetings and use my judgment. And that's what I'm doing. And if I'm telling you, I'm in the meeting, I know what happened in the meeting.
Right.
You don't know what happened in the meeting. You know what you read on your cousin's Facebook page.
Right. The dark web.
Which was complete nonsense. So, I mean, at some point, you've got to just say, I'm going to do what I was elected to do, which is study and use my best judgment. You can't just vote or take a position the way the last person who texted you told you to.
Right.
That's not leadership.
Right.
And in fact, that's not even, you wouldn't even be scientific. You wouldn't even know scientifically whether the last one that texted you loudest was actually the majority. Right. I mean, that's just not the way it works.
Right.
And, you know, sometimes you've got to say, look, the information that a lot of people are getting on this issue is not actually true. I'm going to do this. And, you know, at some point you got to just be willing to say, I don't need this job if you want me to do my job out of ignorance. I don't want it. Right. I left Congress after 2 terms, the Ways and Means Committee. that was the dream of a lot. That was a job of a lifetime. I walked away because my family was more important. But my point is, I don't need that. So the best thing to do is realize being a leader, whether you're elected or not, is what you do. It's not who you are. It's what you do. It's not who you are. You're an actor. It's what you do. It's not who you are. The people who confuse what they do with who they are, they never want to stop it because they lose their identity.
Boom. That's it. Yep.
They say, I can't ever quit being a big star because once I quit, I'm a has-been and nobody knows. And if that's just what you did, you won't have a problem with it. But if it's who you are, you can't stop. Dude. And I saw that in Congress. Some people would just never, they didn't want to leave because it's all they knew and it's what they were known as, right? So I think that's wisdom right there. It's really important to remind me I am just a guy with a wonderful family and blessings from God. And when this life is over, nobody's going to remember what Tim Griffin did. But I have an obligation to do what I can. And it's hard for me, not to be engaged. But it's not who I am. It's just what I'm doing. Right?
That's amazing, dude. That's awesome.
So that's that. I really think that's the key. The other thing I would say on leadership, you got two choices. You can mirror people or you can lead them. You can go to people who have ideas that you don't necessarily agree with, and you can say, yeah, that's right, even though you know it's not. That's mirroring them.
Okay. Or
you can lead them. You can say, look, I hear you. I appreciate that, but let me give you an alternative way to move. The latter is harder because a lot of people are going to fight you. And when I was in Congress, that happened a lot. I had some of my colleagues that would go home to a town hall. They would have someone tell them they knew was wrong, something they knew was wrong. And instead of saying, that's not right, let me tell you why, they would say, well, yeah, you got that right. Get everybody riled up. And you're just shaking your head going, dude, you just encourage them, even though you know that's not what happened. So you can mirror or you can lead.
Yeah.
Mirror is easier because you're just telling somebody what you just said is exactly right.
Yeah, you just tell them.
And that's easy. Yeah. That's easy because that's what they want to hear.
Right.
But if it's not exactly right, you've got to do it with love and say, well, look, I agree with your goal. I agree with where you want to go. But that's not the best way to do it. I
think that's a whole other hour on how to have that kind of strength, because I feel like I'm a person that will be like, yeah, sure, and then walk away being like, well, I'm not doing that, but in the moment, instead of being like, I hear you.
It's tough. Hey, it's tough.
It's that idea of how do you have a healthy conflict? How do you have healthy arguments? That's part 2 of this.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you go, brother, because I always like to make the commitment of shutting this thing down at an hour on. Tim, you have blessed my life for your wisdom and your advice and your information today. I know that the listeners were blessed by you today, brother. I want to wish you all of the best in your life.
Love y'all. Tell everybody hi. I hope Scott Morris is on here. If he's not, I'm mad at
him. He's watching. All right, pal. We love you, brother.
God bless y'all. Thank y'all.
All right. See you, man. All right, guys. Tim Griffin. He is running for governor of Arkansas. You can go visit his, if you want to know all about him, you go to www.timgriffin. And you can look at his platforms. You can look at his pictures of his wife and kids. You can donate to his thing if you want to do that. We need guys like him and women like him who are leaders. Like he said, I want Tom Brady on my football team. I don't want the guy who can't throw a ball very well. And there are certain people who've trained their whole lives to be in those positions, to do the work and to do the studies. Tim is one of those guys. It's also funny that he's probably one of the most qualified people I know for being the president. And he laughed. No one wants that job, which I don't blame anybody for not wanting it. But good people need to do it. I'm going to pray for you all, if you'll allow me. And then I'm going to say goodnight, and I'm going to let you guys have your week. So Heavenly Father, I just come to you today, and I want to thank Tim Griffin for being on the show, and I want you to bless his life, bless his career. Thank you for putting him in office, and your will is going to be done in his life regarding governance, and we thank you for that. And I want to just pray for the people watching this right now, for the brokenhearted, for the weary at heart, for the lonely, that you will just fill their hearts with a sense of peace and a sense of joy and a sense of love, knowing that they're not alone, that you'll keep everybody safe and free of COVID this week, and that you'll just have an awesome week. In Jesus' name I pray. All right, dudes, I will see you. Oh, yeah, you watched Wonder Woman. It's the last day to watch it. Go watch Wonder Woman 84 on HBO Max today. That's it. I'll see you next Sunday. Bye, guys. And I'll let you know what we're doing. I'm not quite sure yet what next week's topic is. So hang tight on that. I'll post something this week and let you know. All right, guys. Bye-bye.